Hey guys, well today is the day. It is Derby Day once again here at All For Him Racing, and this time we're running the 86 Chevy pickup. We have been hard at work this week trying to get this thing ready to go, and I think we finally got this thing looking like a truck and ready to hit it. Only a few last minute things here to do, and then it's time to throw it on the trailer, pack it up, and head off to Williams County once again. This is going to be run number 3 for this truck. It's already been through 2 derbies, 4th place the first year, 3rd place last year, and we're hoping once again to either perform well or drive this thing to the ground, whatever comes first. So let's go ahead and walk around and show you guys what all we've done. So you saw in one of our earlier videos of us pulling this thing out, the core support and the fenders, just some other things we were doing trying to get this thing working, to look like it and to work like a truck again, you know, to look like a truck especially. We were able to get this frame rail pulled back pretty good. It was a matter of heating it with the torch, putting a bobcat against the side of the truck and actually winching it that way. Similar thing with this frame. They're both unfortunately slightly leaning towards the passenger side, so kind of curious to see how well this thing actually holds up with front end hits. We got our the aluminum bumper here that we've been running for many years on the front, and the rules require that it has to be bolted on one of the sides, whether it's on the frame part or the bumper side. So we bolted the bumper side because it's aluminum, and then what we done was use the angle iron that we had last year with the bolts. We put new bolts in it because the bolts got sheared off last year, and we went ahead and then welded the bracket to it. We were allowed to weld it, but we moved to a new house and unfortunately didn't have the means to do it last year in a hurry situation because we had just moved into this house. So now I've obviously got the welding capabilities, so we threw some welds on there, welded those brackets onto the front of the frame, then the bumper is bolted to that. So I feel pretty confident this year about this bumper staying on at least a little bit longer. Hopefully something else breaks first if this decides to come loose. Radiator, believe it or not, still holds water, and we actually had to reconfigure the bottom hose a little bit, just because now it's a lot closer to the engine than it used to be, just with everything being pushed in. We pulled it out as best we could, but there's only so much we could do without putting a whole new front clip on this truck. And so we did that. That's all ready to go. Went ahead and actually added a temperature gauge onto this engine again. I had one back when I did the pulling tractor stuff. We took it out just for derby use, and I felt that after last year and things getting really hot on us, that it would be worth throwing another one on. They weren't too expensive, so we threw a gauge on. You'll see that in the dash. So that way at least I can keep track of how hot everything's getting. If it gets super hot, I can shut it down and not burn up my motor. Went ahead and put a smaller air cleaner on because the hood got all mashed into the last one. So even though we did actually cut this hood back about 3 or so inches in the front and a little bit off that side, I went ahead and just put the smaller air cleaners that we actually had on our Camaro on the motor for today, just so that way we have a little bit more clearance and room to allow things to bend around the truck. I had my father-in-law come over and help me get the engine tuned up. We turned up the accelerator pump to its max stroke length, and that seems to be helping quite a bit with the hesitation that we had. We also had a couple vacuum issues that we were able to resolve. With all that in mind, we retweaked the timing, and it seems to be running pretty healthy now. And we unfortunately found that we had a dead cylinder. The number 2 cylinder was misfiring and actually had a break in the wire. So we put another one on. It's semi-temporary at this point, I guess, but temporarily permanent, as they would say. It's going to be permanent for today's derby. We got it rerouted so it goes under the header this time instead of over the top. Hopefully that'll eliminate the issue that we saw from last year's derby, but we will definitely have to invest in some new plugs and wires next year for sure, and maybe even some new headers. These ones are getting pretty banged up and bent, and we'll see. You know, they still look fine. Obviously I've got the wraps and stuff on them, but anyways, just did a lot of body work, put in new bolts for the core support. Unfortunately, we can't have all thread going all the way up. These are pretty stock rules that this is built for, and we're only allowed to use stock bolt locations. So we did replace those with higher grade bolts, but and reconfigured the way we had the washers. We had to leave the stock rubbers in place. Those kind of got tore up, so we put them on the back side. Hopefully they don't yell at me about that, but they're being pre-ran, hopefully not. We put those big washers and the rubber piece on the bottom, so that way it's all still stock components. It's just in a different order than it was, which then gives me a lot better grip and less likely to have these bolts rip through these supports like we had last year. Tires all still held air, so pretty much all we did with these guys is just touch up the paint. That's what we actually did quite a bit here. You wouldn't even know it, but I repainted all the white back here. Went over all the flames, except for the all-for-him racing, that stayed. Repainted the door here for numbers. They paint them when we get there. The only place that does that, but anyways, I gotta have a white door so they can paint the numbers on when we go through inspection. Tried something kind of copying off the Camaro a little bit, threw the triangles on. I hated it. It didn't look as well as I had hoped. I guess I can't say I hated it, just didn't turn out the way I envisioned in my head. So went ahead and threw flames on there too, just trying to kind of tie in the front that we didn't repaint to the back that was all been repainted due to all the damage that we sustained. Again, other than the logo is still the original one from when we painted this thing last. So I threw some flames in there too to kind of fill in the space. Made a stencil for an American flag. Thought that was kind of neat. Threw that in there a few places. And I always have the horse for my daughter riding along with me. So yeah, you know, just playing with some different things. The bumper here, you saw some of that in our last video. We cut off the rearmost part of the frame. We had the bumper on here, kind of twisted the ends a little bit. So we shortened them up about 4 inches or so. And then left the original brackets that went to the bumper on the back. Bent them up a little bit to kind of hold the tailgate in place. And then we just simply wired it to the side. This is, again, really stock rules for this Derby at Williams County. They consider the tailgate a trunk, and the trunks are only allowed to be wired in 4 locations, so 2 per side is what we did here. I did actually go ahead and re-weld a washer on here, and then actually 2 new ones on the other side, where I set them back a little bit farther and in a better location where I could get wire through. The original ones, there's so much damage and twisting to them that the wires will no longer actually fit through the holes. So rather than re-drill them, I just decided to put a new one in more optimum placement. So we got that wired in place. Again, these brackets just kind of holding the tailgate in place in the bottom. But that eliminates the full bumper from being here anymore, just the tailgate, so we can do a little bit more business in the Derby and not have to worry about the bumper causing us grief again, like last year where it actually wanted to dig down in the ground. And so that has been eliminated. Hopefully this will work out all right. The bed is actually accordioning in a little bit, so kind of packing in, which is actually interesting. The rearmost bolts unfortunately got ripped out, and those were actually where those bolted would have been right where the frame was that we cut off. But since this was already according in, the next set of bolts are nice and tight. No issues there, so we just decided to leave it. Again, it's just all kind of packing in. So taking what we've learned from cars, we're going to give that a try and see how well that holds up. This bedside has been through some stuff. If you guys remember, the first time we ran it, this thing was standing way up, really bent. I folded it back down. Last year, it kind of went right back. Not expecting it to do a whole lot more other than go right back to where it was previous, but got it mostly straightened out, and again, same kind of wire situation we did on the other side, so we wired that all tight together. Suspension in the rear, that's all still good. Where we put our clamps seems to be working quite well, not having any issues there, so we just decided to leave that all alone. Drive shaft, left that all alone. Fuel tanks right there, got everything cleaned up. And then inside, pretty much no change. We did go ahead and add a second battery into it. We were allowed 2 batteries, so we've only been running 1. Figured why not, just one less thing to have to worry about. Second battery, so hopefully that gives us a little bit extra protection. There's our tack, but right next to it is the temp gauge I was telling you about. Has a little light in it too, so that's nice. So that way, most likely when I'm running this thing, it'll be at night, and so that'll be nice. So I can keep an eye on the temp and make sure it doesn't go through the roof on me or anything weird. Apart from that, that's about it. So what's left to do here? Just gotta top off the radiator. Gotta top that off here. We gotta check the transmission fluid. It was a little low. I added some. Just need to make sure everything's good there. And that's about it. Load up tools, load the truck up, and then head off to Williams County. So there you go, guys. There's an update on our 86 Chevy Derby truck, ready for round number 3. Today is Derby Day. We are excited and hoping that this thing does not look like this when it's all done. So hopefully the engine stays together, transmission stays together. Maybe we can win best paint again. You know, that's always something we go for, so we'll try it again. And if nothing else, hopefully we can finish this truck off or you know, go down swinging. So until the next video, I will talk to you later, guys.